Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
Robert Solow's A Contribution to the Theory of Economic Growth, published in 1958, stands as a cornerstone of modern economic growth theory. The paper addressed inherent limitations within the prevalent Harrod-Domar model, particularly its emphasis on factor proportions and the problematic lack of substitutability between capital and labour. This inflexibility produced what economists termed a nifage instability, wherein sustained growth required an unlikely and precarious alignment of savings, capital output, and labour force expansion. Even the slightest deviation sent the system spiralling into either unsustainable boom or stagnation. Solow's neoclassical growth model presented a viable alternative. At its core lay several key assumptions, most notably diminishing returns to both capital and labour. This meant that as more capital was added to a fixed amount of labour, or vice versa, the incremental increase in output would eventually decline. Furthermore, the model assumed constant returns to scale, implying that doubling both capital and labour would precisely double output. A critical element was the inclusion of exogenous technological progress, a factor driving economic growth independently of capital accumulation or labour force expansion. The model considered this progress to be entirely outside of the model's predictive scope, a simplification that would later attract considerable criticism. Mathematically, the Solow model found expression in a production function, frequently represented as y equals k to the power of alpha multiplied by L to the power of 1 minus alpha, where y denotes aggregate output, k represents capital stock, L represents labour input, and alpha signifies the capital share of income. This specific formulation, often referred to as the Cobb-Douglas production function, exhibited several desirable properties, including constant returns to scale and diminishing returns to each factor. The value of alpha, constrained between 0 and 1, determined the relative contributions of capital and labour to overall production. A central concept within the Solow model is the steady-state equilibrium. This occurs when investment equals depreciation, indicating that the capital stock remains constant over time. In this state, the economy experiences equilibrium growth, with output rising at a rate determined by the rate of technological progress and population growth. The steady-state level of capital per worker is determined by the intersection of the investment function, savings rate multiplied, by output per worker, and the depreciation function, depreciation rate multiplied by capital per worker. The Solow model predicted convergence in income levels across countries possessing similar savings rates, depreciation rates, and population growth rates. Countries starting with lower capital stocks per worker would experience faster growth as they converged towards their steady-state level. Conversely, countries with higher initial capital stocks would grow slowly as they approached the steady state. This convergence hypothesis became a focal point of subsequent empirical research, with varying degrees of support found in the data. Within his original paper, Solow meticulously explored the implications of the Cobb-Douglas production function. He derived expressions for the steady-state capital stock, output, and consumption levels as functions of savings rates, depreciation rates, and technological progress. He then investigated how changes in these parameters would affect the long-run equilibrium of the economy. For example, Solow demonstrated that an increase in the savings rate would lead to a higher steady-state capital stock and output level, though it would not affect the long-run growth rate, which remained determined by exogenous technological progress. It is important to acknowledge that the Solow model builds directly upon the earlier Ramsey-Cass-Koopmans model, a more complex optimal growth framework. The latter model endogenizes the savings rate through intertemporal optimization by economic agents, whereas Solow treated the savings rate as an exogenous parameter. The increased simplicity of Solow's model, however, allowed for broader accessibility and widespread adoption. The impact of Solow's work extended far beyond theoretical circles. Mencken, Romer, and Weil's 1992 paper provided empirical tests of the Solow model using cross-country data, significantly influencing policy debates. Their findings suggested that the Solow model, augmented with human capital, went a long way toward explaining cross-country income differences. Their paper showed that a modified Solow model with human capital accumulation displayed superior performance in matching observed income variations. The original model assumes a closed economy exhibiting constant returns to scale. This implies that total output increases proportionally, with simultaneous and equal increases in all inputs. This fundamental assumption simplifies the model, allowing it to focus on the interplay between capital accumulation, labour force expansion, and technological change. Despite its simplifying assumptions, the Solow model offered valuable insights into the drivers of long-run economic growth establishing a foundation for subsequent research and policy analysis. Further models would loosen many assumptions. The influence of Robert Solow's contribution to the theory of economic growth is evident in the subsequent decades of research it spurred. Economists build upon its foundations, introducing factors absent from the original formulation. The expansion of the model to incorporate human capital represents one prominent avenue of development. This acknowledged the role of education, skills, and health in augmenting labor productivity, treating human capital as a distinct factor of production alongside physical capital and labor. This refinement recognized that economic growth depended, partially, on investments in human capabilities. Another significant extension addressed technological progress. The original Solow model treated technological advancement as an exogenous force, arriving from outside the model, a factor determined outside the economic system itself. This treatment, though simplifying the initial analysis, prompted economists to develop endogenous growth models. These models sought to explain technological progress as a result of factors within the economy, such as research and development, innovation, and knowledge spillovers. Paul Romer's work in this area, specifically his 1990 contribution showcasing how investment in research and development could drive sustained growth, marks a pivotal milestone. Similar models emerged from the work of Robert Lucas, who focused on human capital accumulation as the engine of endogenous growth. Despite the widespread adoption and influence of the Solow model, economists identified limitations. Prominent is the model's assumption of exogenous technological progress. This assumption constrains the model's ability to fully explain persistent differences in growth rates across nations. Why do some countries consistently exhibit faster technological advancement than others? The exogenous nature of technological progress offers no answer. The assumption of identical technology levels or identical access to technology is demonstrably false. The Cambridge Capital controversy provides another critical perspective. This debate centered on the validity of the neoclassical production function, a core element of the Solow model. Critics argued that the aggregation of capital goods into a single, homogeneous measure presupposed what it aimed to prove. The difficulty in independently measuring capital without reference to rates of return cast doubt on the theoretical foundations of the model. This concern challenged the very definition of capital input. The Solow model exerted significant influence on policy debates. It underscored the importance of savings and investment in fostering economic growth. Higher savings rates, according to the model, lead to greater capital accumulation and, consequently, higher levels of output. At least until the economy approaches its steady state, policymakers, armed with insights from the model, advocated policies to encourage savings and investment, such as tax incentives and financial sector reforms. The model influences macroeconomic analysis and forecasting. Central banks and government agencies employ sophisticated versions of the Solow model to project long-run economic trends and assess the potential impact of policy changes. These models, often augmented with additional factors and complexities, serve as tools for informed decision-making. The Federal Reserve, for example, utilizes dynamic stochastic general equilibrium models, which incorporate elements of the Solow model to forecast inflation and output growth. Robert Barrow and Xavier Salai Martin, in their influential work on economic growth, conducted thorough empirical tests of the Solow model using cross-country data. Their research highlighted the augmented Solow model's ability to explain cross-country income differences. Their findings suggested that incorporating human capital accumulation into the model yielded superior performance in capturing observed income variations. This reinforced the model's practical utility. The model assumes a closed economy exhibiting constant returns to scale. This implies that output increases proportionally, with simultaneous and equal increases in all inputs. This assumption simplifies the model, allowing it to concentrate on the interplay between capital accumulation, labor force expansion, and technological change. Despite simplifying assumptions, the Solow model offered valuable insights into the drivers of long-run economic growth, establishing a foundation for subsequent research and policy analysis. Later models would loosen many assumptions. The Solow model's enduring contribution lies in its role as a benchmark. It provided a clear and tractable framework for analyzing the sources of economic growth. It is a foundation that subsequent research, policy debates, and economic modeling built upon. Its very simplicity and clarity, while also subjects of criticism, render it an invaluable tool for grasping the complexities of economic development. As a foundational element, it offers a lens through which to view the long-run forces shaping national economies.
We really appreciate you tuning in to this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, Please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.